A famous quote from Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
This is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics. I'm here in a special episode on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I'm here with Teddy. Hi, Teddy.
Hi.
And I'm here with Arthur. Hi, Arthur.
Hi.
Guys, what are we going to talk about today?
Martin Luther King Jr. and the things that he did.
Okay.
And why the civil rights that are here today should have been there when he was alive.
Okay. So, who was Martin Luther King Jr.?
He was a super smart boy who skipped 2 grades, a man who believed in peaceful protest, and a great leader of the civil rights movement.
Okay. So, Teddy is looking at a book that he read called Who Was Martin Luther King Jr.?
From Who HQ.
And who's it by, honey?
By Bonnie Bader.
Okay, and so Teddy's read this book, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. So, when and where was Martin Luther King Jr. born?
On January 15th, 1929, in the city of Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, Arthur, what were you going to say?
Black and white people can now go to the same school.
Yeah, that's true. Do you go to the same school as little black kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
And are you able to use the same water fountain and sit at the same lunch table?
Yes.
And do you think that's good?
Yes.
My friend Kendall at school sits at the lunch table that I sit at.
And are you friends?
Yes. We're best friends.
And does it matter that you look a little bit different?
No.
Does that change anything about who you are or what kind of people you can be?
No, because you should always judge people by their character, not by the color of their skins.
Okay, and what does it mean to judge people by their character?
Of what their behavior is, what they do, not the color of their skin.
What was life like in the South, in the U.S. South, when Martin Luther King Jr. was a kid?
It's here in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a quote from the book.
Okay.
Martin Luther King Jr. was always a very good student. He loved to read and make speeches. He studied very hard and skipped 2 grades. At just 15 years old, he graduated from high school. That summer, Martin worked at Simsbury, Connecticut. It was Martin's first time in the North. He had a job in the tobacco fields. He was surprised to see how different life was for blacks in the North. Black children and white children went to the same schools. There was no separate restaurants.
Okay, So,
as I said, that was what it was like in the North.
Okay.
What
was it like in the South?
So, the question she asked me about how it was in the South. So, I was reading that part of the book about the North. So, just so you know that the South was the opposite of the North.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Well, the South was opposite as the North means because there was a lot of things that weren't there. Blacks couldn't go to the same restaurants, drink at the same water fountains, going to different schools.
So, Arthur, what were the different schools like?
Black and white.
Okay, and what was the difference between those kinds of schools? What did the white schools have that the black schools didn't have?
White bricks. They had white playgrounds.
Teddy, what did the white schools have that the black schools didn't have?
Playgrounds.
Playgrounds, and what else?
Desks, or even windows.
Okay, so it sounds like they were separate.
Or even how big and small.
Yeah, so the schools for the black kids were smaller sometimes?
Yeah.
And does that seem very fair to you guys?
No.
Why not?
It is not humane.
Okay.
People shouldn't be treated that way just because of the color of their skin.
Or for any reason, right?
It's inhumane. It's unfair for the black people. We are glad that Martin was there, because he has changed that all.
Okay, and how did he change it?
He changed it by protesting in a non-violent, peaceful way. No fists. No violent things. With the power of words and marches.
Okay, and what are some of the kinds of nonviolent protests they did?
The bus boycott happened first.
Okay, what was
So-
the bus boycott?
When black people didn't ride buses, without their money, bus companies would shut down.
Go
Okay.
out of business.
And why did the black people decide to stop riding the bus?
Because they thought it was unfair that they had to sit in the back of the bus and the white people get to sit in the front.
And does that seem unfair to you?
Yes,
Okay.
it's inhumane, just like the schools.
Okay, and so what was the boycott? What did they do?
Well, they walked to school, drove their cars, carpooled, all sorts of things that weren't that wasn't bus riding.
All right, so was this boycott just for a little bit of time?
No,
How long was it for?
more than a full year.
So more than a full year they didn't ride the buses. And did it work?
Yes, it worked.
Okay, and what does that mean? What did they get from it?
They got to ride in the front of the bus.
Okay, so the bus system had to allow them to have equal access to all the seats on the bus?
Well, yes. So, another thing about discrimination. So, Martin's daughter, Yolanda, so he called her Yoki. So, one day she saw on TV an amusement park called Funtown, and she said, "Daddy, look, an amusement park. Please, can we go?" And Martin said, "I'm sorry, Yoki, we can't. Funtown is not open to black people." Seeing his daughter cry was one of the most painful moments in his life. It only made him work harder for change.
Okay. And so Teddy right now is referencing another book that we read. It's called I Am Martin Luther King Jr. Who's it by, honey?
Brad Meltzer.
Okay. And this is from a series called Ordinary People Change the World.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what are some of the other kinds of things? Once they found out that the bus boycott worked, what else did they do? So did Martin Luther King ever get in trouble for these protests?
A lot of times he did.
And what would happen?
The marches still went on.
Okay. Did he ever go to jail?
Yes, many times. So, there was even a march called the Kids Crusade. More than 1,000 people showed up to march. And the police arrested 900 of them.
So when he was in jail,
He wrote his famous letter from Birmingham jail.
all right, and is there a famous quote from that?
"Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere."
What do you think that means?
Well, it means that people should not commit injustice, but commit justice.
Okay, do you know what injustice is?
Things that aren't justified.
Okay. So, things that are unfair, maybe?
Unfair. Yeah, that's the way to describe it.
Okay, and so injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Let's think about that. If there's something going on in the South, but we live in the North, should we care?
Yes, even if in the North, like, like when I read from who was Martin Luther King Jr. So you saw me, you heard me say that there wasn't as much segregation in the North as it was in the South. So even if you people live in the North that you're listening to it, when you're listening, if you lived back then, and if you're still living in the North, and if you lived in the North back then, you still should have cared about the people in the South.
Do you think if you'd been a kid then, you would have done things like the Kids Crusade, even if it meant you might go to jail?
Yes.
Why?
Because even if I go to jail, I'm sure it changes the laws.
Have you ever gone to a march or protest?
Yes, the Women's March.
Do you think maybe there are still some laws that aren't completely fair?
Yes, that's why we have marches today.
Okay.
And what about that march on science that we did?
Yeah. Are there still people who maybe aren't paying as much attention to science as they should be?
Well, one person that doesn't pay any attention to science or global warming. Donald John Trump.
And do you think that marches can still work?
Yes. He may not listen, but it will make many other people listen.
Okay. What was the big famous march you started to talk about earlier?
Yes. The March on Washington. A very massive march, bigger than any marches he had ever been in. And he made his famous I Have a Dream speech.
Okay. So, what was his dream?
I read it from who was Martin Luther King Jr. I read it there, but here's another version of his speech. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. Let freedom ring. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
All right, excellent. So what does that mean, to judge someone by the content of their character?
By how they behave and what they do.
So do you think that now people judge each other by the content of their character instead of by the color of their skin?
Yes, but there are still some countries that have problems with racial discrimination and segregation.
Some countries and even some parts of our country.
It shouldn't be happening. So, we're mostly talking about black people, but Donald Trump was going to build a wall across the Mexico border that borders Mexico and USA.
That's true. Why is that a problem?
Because even though he says they are criminals, murderers, and drug dealers, they are really not. They are very friendly people, in fact.
Well, there are probably some people that are bad and some people that are good everywhere, right?
Well, yeah, I know, but they created something that we had at school. The Posada.
Oh,
a Christmas celebration.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, I don't have any information about it, but of course I can tell you. So, they worship Jesus in this big celebration called a Posada, and they have a piñata. If you haven't heard of it, it's a gigantic thing full of candy which you hit with a stick and break open. It's really fun, and we had it at my school.
Okay. But, so, it sounds like the point you're trying to make is that
They invent great things. Like the Posada.
Well, and that there are good people everywhere.
Yes.
And we shouldn't be judging people just on where they come from or what they look like.
That's part of my point.
And so what are some things that we can do now to make sure that we don't have discrimination?
Do all the things that Martin Luther King Jr. did. And even little things help. You don't have to make a big change. Little changes count.
Okay, like what?
this isn't about him, but so in a science comics book, it was not polluting the ocean. We could have beach cleanups and little things. You don't even have to do big things that help us not pollute. Polluting is putting us in as much danger as racial discrimination.
But you can do little things to help with both of those?
Yes. You don't have to do, if you don't want to do big things, you don't have to. You can do little things.
Okay. Like maybe be friends with people no matter what color their skin?
Yeah.
You want to make sure
and even if you don't want to be friends with them, treat them a different way.
So treat everybody with respect?
Yes. Even if you don't want them to be your friend.
Goodbye.
That was Arthur saying goodbye because he doesn't want to be on the episode anymore.
Okay.
Just so you know. Goodbye. And remember to treat people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Thanks for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Our theme song is called Are You Listening? Off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast.